Hey guys, in this video we're going to look at Jamstack. We're going to understand what it is, what Astro is, because that's the best kind of current example of Jamstack, I would suppose. And I want to really sort of fix on some answers to questions such as, if you're coming into web design, should it be in the WordPress environment or should you be going Jamstack? Or if you're in WordPress, should you be focusing more on WordPress and doubling down on that, or should you be starting to pivot into Jamstack and get your know-how a little bit more established in that area? So in this video we're going to talk about what Jamstack is and define it, and I'd like to go through some of the pros and the cons with you. Just explain what it is in the space, and hopefully that will give you some food for thought on where you want to go in the industry. Now, full disclosure on this one, I started my journey a couple of months back when, as Mr. WordPress, I make a living with WordPress. I vibe coded a site, and that happened to be a Next.js site, which is, kind of like it's a big Jamstack. And that's when I then became more aware of Eleventy and Astro. Astro is really getting quite the revival at the moment, a lot of attention. And that's when I became aware of this Jamstack thing. Now, interestingly, as I look into this to get more tutorials and learn more, I'm coming across YouTube videos that are like 5, 6, 7 years old. And some of those are even saying, is Jamstack dead? And it's like, oh, I didn't even know it was here. So at that point in time is when I was pivoting out of Joomla and starting to go into WordPress, because I felt a big pull to start using more visual drag drop builders, which at the time Elementor was really sort of throwing into on the WordPress world, and that made a lot of sense. But unbeknown to me, on the side there's this whole sort of like dev community, all hand coding Jamstack sites with Eleventy and all of these other things, all of the things that I felt like I'd newly discovered in the last couple of months. So wow, I'm only like 6, 7 years or more than that behind the times. So now here's my very timely video of should everyone pivot to Jamstack? And that's the thing. There's this thing called Jamstack, and it existed kind of on the side, but it didn't go mainstream. It kind of like came in, everyone, all the nerds, all the coding nerds got excited about it, and then it kind of tapered off. But it's when we look at the times and what was happening at that point that we can understand why that happened and why Jamstack, at that point at least, didn't even take off. I suppose we'll come back to that in a second once we actually talk about what Jamstack is. So, no, let's do it now. Keep you in suspense. So that's around the same time that I was feeling a lot of pressure to come out of Joomla a little bit, which was not very client user friendly, and move more into WordPress, which was a more established CMS and one that had a lot of visual drag drop page builder, gizmos to offer clients. That was winning because there was this culture of Wix and Squarespace and Shopify really taking off. And there was this kind of like war against the like DIY culture, and that's where a lot of SME professional website building was kind of, in my view anyway, and to my experience, was kind of pushed to go into that space. Now, from looking at the timestamps on all these videos, that's kind of around the time when a lot of these static site generators and the Jamstack system was really starting to get a lot of attention. And while the nerds and the coders were quite excited about it, it didn't gain traction in the mainstream SME business kind of world. Instead, I think there was just more of a pressure to take things to the WordPress kind of realm, the visual drag drop within WordPress kind of space. However, this is where I think things have changed a little bit, and that is really with AI, because I didn't stumble across the technology of Jamstack before I did a vibe coded site. I got curious about this vibe coding malarkey. I went to Claude, and Claude whacked up this site that's now my digital strategy site. It's very, very lovely. Let's have a quick look. There it is. All right. So Claude whacked this together. A horrid use of Tailwind throughout, and it did actually adopt a lot of my branding. It's quite similar to my old site, to be honest, the one that I built in Etch on WordPress. And, you know, to be honest, people have said it looks like AI slot, but it's like, it kind of looks like it did before. But anyway, so this was, you know, this is a Jamstack site. So, well, it's a Next.js site, but, you know, that, yeah, Jamstack, I would say. But it's when I then sort of learned more about this, I delved more into it, and then, you know, quizzed Claude on how to do this more myself. And I went more into the Astro space, which is Jamstack, or 11T and then Astro. That's when I kind of stumbled across it. But again, it's not because I ended up Googling or finding out about Jamstack and giving it a shot. I gave vibe coding a shot, and it just turns out that if you ask Claude to build you up something, or any of these other sort of coding agents, they're going to use a Jamstack kind of architecture because they can work with that. They can set it up. It's static HTML. It's connecting up, you know, different systems. It suits website production with AI. And that's also what I started to see a lot on LinkedIn, you know, lots of, you know, WordPress is so cooked type of posts. And then everyone was talking about a site that they had vibe coded for a client and hosted on Vercel, maybe even used Sanity. And these were Jamstack sites. And so it's not that the technology or the architecture or the system so much sort of got this revival. It's just that AI came onto the scene, and AI can make a lot of use of Jamstack sites, and so it's becoming current. And that's what we've got to kind of consider if we're trying to put Jamstack in its place and figure out where we are in terms of web designers or web industry. That, you know, you've got to decide that a lot of the DIY culture now, business DIYers, they're not going to be going to Wix and Squarespace and Shopify so much. No, they're going to go to vibe coding. They're going to get Claude to rock up a website, and it's going to be a Jamstack one. It's probably going to be Astro, or, you know, might even jump all the way to a Next.js one, even though it's too much for a brochure. But that's what they'll end up with. And that's where we'll sort of position ourselves in the web industry. We're either people who can consult on that because we understand it. We know Jamstack, we know AI. Well, they're not calling it Jamstack, are they? The clients with their new websites. They're calling it my vibe coded site. We know that under the hood it's Jamstack. We know how it works if we familiarize ourselves with it, and we can get in there and be the Mr. Fix-It or Mrs. Fix-It engineer or consultant. And that's kind of where we might want to position ourselves. You know, we can go in there and do the rescue project. Or, obviously, there are going to be customers or clients who actually say, I want you to, you know, be the architect for a vibe coded site. I want to use that system. I want to use the one that my mate Steve has got. And so again, it's just that it's AI, it's Claude, it's ChatGPT, it's all of those, that new system making use of this that is bringing this to the forefront of our web industry. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we have to react to that. These are now becoming the current tools of the day. It's becoming the one that, you know, AI recommendations would actually say is probably best to use. I mean, if you ask ChatGPT what's best for a business website, it's going to speak more of these systems more than WordPress for the objective reasons that we'll cover in a minute. But, you know, speed, security, ease of setup. That's exactly why AI uses it. So I think there's something to be said about that, which is that even though researching this technology, or it's some very simple technologies, even though researching this system kind of reveals it to be sort of 6-7 years old, and then it faded a bit into obscurity. It was, you know, king of the nerds for a while. AI has brought it back. This new age has brought it back, and I discovered it a couple of months back, and I can't think of going and using WordPress again. Objectively, for reasons that we'll have a quick peek into. I just can't think of using WordPress again, or when I have to, it's reluctant. So yeah. Okay, so I will go through the kind of like the pros and the cons of like why is Jamstack winning on this front. I suppose that sounds a bit biased, but I will talk. We'll look at page speed. We'll look at user experience. We'll look at ease of setup or the building experience. We'll look at CMS options. You'll leave this video with a good understanding of the benefits of Jamstack, and we'll do that with reference to WordPress to compare. But first of all, let's quickly understand what Jamstack is. So at the moment, Jamstack means Astro, okay? Because Astro is just gaining a lot of traction at the moment. For those that know that they're talking about Jamstack, really people are talking more about Astro. I'm certainly moving more into the Astro sort of space. But Jamstack means is JavaScript, API, and then markup. Okay, so that actually sort of depicts the process that these sites go through. So we've got the JavaScript, which does all the thinking for us. It makes all the links between our templates, our style sheets, our this, that, and the other. That's what actually links up all of the different assets and resources and templates and files. It's by the process of JavaScript. API is where different functions are called in, or that's actually the process of the building of it. But whereas with a WordPress site, for example, there's a database query. When you ask for the about page, there's a database query. It pulls everything together and creates you a page. The moment of build happens before it's requested. And that's the bit that you've got to kind of get your head around. The JavaScript and the API, the building of everything, the actual calling of all of the data happens before somebody clicks to go onto a page, because this is the markup bit. The J and the A creates the M, and then you've got Jam ready to go. So the markup is created. It's the HTML page. There's nothing really safer than an HTML page, a flat HTML page saved on a server and ready to go. So it's not being put together as part of a query process. It's already there. You've sent it off to Vercel or your host. The JavaScript has joined up all of the different resources. The API has called in all of the different information, and it's put it all together into a nice flat HTML page. And it's already there, ready to be called and given out as soon as somebody clicks on a button for a website. So that is what Jamstack is. Any one of those three technologies are not new. Well, certainly not before I found out about them. But even 6 or 7 years ago, JavaScript, APIs, and markup, they're all things that were there before. But it's about the process that it goes through and where you can host that and how that works. So yeah, that's very, very interesting. So for example, if we go to this site, if I click on the about page, once I click on that link, the website is not going to go, oh, you like the about page? Not a problem, sir. And run off and get all of the about page text, the about page images, and then bring all that together, cobble it together and serve it up to me. It's not going to do that. The about page is already created and it's hosted as a flat HTML file ready to just be switched out for what I'm currently looking at. So if I click, that's so fast, okay? Because it was already there ready to go. This text was already painted onto the actual sheet and file ready to be served up. This image had already been retrieved and put in there. So it didn't have to be like, what image was it, guys? Tell me, blah, blah, blah. Go and get the image of Chris looking awesome on a stool. Clearly an AI version of him. So yeah, that's how Jamstack works. And that's why we get these crazy fast websites. Look how fast this is. So a WordPress equivalent site, every time I click something, it's going to have to run off and get something. Get all the pieces and bring it together. Now, I want you to think of this as the picture that I have is, you can go to a restaurant, you can sit at the table, you can have a look at the menu and you can go, ooh, I'll have that one. And then you tell the waiting staff that, and the waiter goes, "Excellent choice, sir," and buggers off to the kitchen. The kitchen cooks it up, and then the food is brought to you. There's that query time, the ordering request time. There's the time of assembly, and then it actually being delivered. That time, that's time. It takes a process, doesn't it? But the other thing is that in that process, there's also a kind of like, there are vulnerabilities. Either mechanically, the waiter could trip over, something could break in that process. The kitchen could be busy or overrun, so there isn't time without a delay. So server overload, or the waiter might have thought you were a bit rude. He told the chef, and the chef went and sprinkled dustpan bits into your pizza. So malicious security or that kind of thing. So you never really know what's going on in that process, but it takes a lot of time. That is where we have WordPress and database query types of systems. There's more time, there's more vulnerability, there's more chance of something going wrong. With these static Jamstack sites, though, it's like stepping in and you find like a buffet, like at the end of Jurassic Park. It's all there. Just sit down, start munching into the trifle. And it's all there, ready to pick up and go for it. So that's a kind of way to think about it. And obviously, there's no query time in here. This is all flat HTML. All of these pages, there's nothing that could be hijacked. There's no query to a database. There are no gaps there for sort of any malicious code to get in there. There's nothing really safer than an HTML sheet served up to you in a browser. And so the exposure to risk and vulnerability is just so low with a Jamstack site. So just in that little run through, we've got two pretty significant wins for Jamstack. And I can't get over that, really. It's and it's been there for like 6 or 7 years. Now, a quick question: does this mean, when we say static HTML sites or static sites, the first thing that came to my mind there was working in 2003 or 4 when I was first really getting into putting websites together with code. And I thought, well, those sites must be really limited in their functionality. They must be very basic, not at all dynamic like what you can achieve with WordPress. I couldn't be more wrong. Now, this isn't a simple Astro site. This has a bit of Next.js in it. But look at how comprehensive this site is. It's everything that you need in a business brochure website. It has a full article system. Okay, so we've got articles and we've got categories. We've got podcasts, and look how fast this is all loading as well. So, in just a few seconds, just a few clicks, I've got fully organized podcasts, and, you can sit on the site, have a little listen. I encourage you to do that. So yeah, these aren't rubbish websites. These are fully functional, business-worthy brochure websites, and they are ready to go, and they are media rich. Just to have a look at a couple of purely Astro sites here. This is for Food Studio, and I've got full documentation logs and things like that. So I've got links to media. I know that I've got media on the site as well, so bringing that in from YouTube obviously, or I can host the video itself. Same with Gen CSS. These are full featured brochure websites. A business doesn't really need more, and actually there are ways to step beyond this simple functionality within the Jamstack Astro world, at least. So the question of does a static website mean that you've got a rubbish kind of website? No, not at all. Look at these. They're absolutely fantastic. Certainly rival most website builds that you'll see with WordPress and page builders, at least. So those are a few sort of practical questions there about how they function, what the user experience is like, how dynamic and media rich the sites can be. And then, of course, this is about user experience, which is a ranking factor. let's actually have a look at another ranking factor, which is page speed. Okay, so I'm just going to fire up a bit of page speed insight. Now, I've been quite proud of how I can get a number of WordPress sites up into the greens, even on the mobile on occasion. Okay, use caching plugins. I'm really strong about my image optimization. Like, marketing teams hate me because I'm always like, did you upload another JPEG? But yeah, so I do what I can from the build up, and then you're using caching plugins. This site, I've done nothing. I've paid no attention to it whatsoever. And that goes for the Feud Studio and Gen CSS as well. Doesn't mean I won't, just for the sake of pride and making sure it's all okay. But I do want to say, whoa, okay, so a bit of work on that was actually higher earlier on when I checked. But anyway, still 68. I'm not actually too sad about that one. Definitely worth another little bit of a nudge. Improved image delivery. I mean, that's fair. Forced reflow. A few little bits to work on there. But yeah, really happy with that. And look at this. God, 100. Again, I've done nothing. I've done absolutely nothing on that. Let's have a look at Feud, just for the sake of looking at another. This is pure Astro. But yeah, the battle with WordPress is that you've got to build really, really well. You've got to optimize, caching plugins just to, get anything close to this. Oh man, I'm happy with that. And 94. So mainly it's in the greens, I bring that up not to talk again about speed, which I've already covered, but to say that the user experience of moving around the site is a ranking factor, and that is really important just for that aspect. But so are the numbers, and how a site reads to the bots and page speed and other web testing tools. It's really, really important to be getting these positive numbers. So yeah, there we go. Should find that encouraging as well. Okay, so we've covered a lot there about the numbers, I suppose, and the actual experience. We've talked about speed, security, or the lack of vulnerability. We have positive ranking factors out of the gate, and I'll just I'll show you a bit about SEO as well. But it is important to think about some other things that the clients want. So again, when Jamstack was apparently dying, unbeknown to me, I was in the world of like Joomla, and a lot of my work in Joomla was making custom templates and things like that to give clients more, not visual drag and drop, but more control to be able to go in and edit their own site, which Joomla, despite being a CMS, was struggled with that in terms of theme options and things. The pressure to go into WordPress was very much that clients wanted control over, their data or their website, and to be able to go in and change things. Now, a lot of people think that, again, we say static website or static website generator like Astro, that means that there's no CMS opportunity. But that can be further from the truth. I use one called Sanity, and to be honest, it's the first one that I've tried. I've only been in this world for a few months. But the world of Sanity here is absolutely fantastic. In terms of which one would I rather put a client into to handle their content, the WordPress dashboard facing Gutenberg for their blog posts, or this environment to go, yeah, sure, go in and make up a new article for your documentation. Look at this experience. It's a beautiful, modern, fast and smooth experience, and this is a lovely place to work. And all of this codes really well onto the front of the site. They literally have to just come on in. They can add a picture or an image or a video, cover image. They've got all the options that they really need. That's pretty fantastic. So as a CMS experience, all of this is integrated into the Astro site if you build it correctly and to do that. But yes, that's That's what is powering all of this documentation. That's what's powering my podcasts on this site, or my articles. And honestly, it's a pleasure to go into the studio for this site and write up an article. It's, Gutenberg and using that is just, it's a horrible place to be, and it's very frustrating. But I want to take it a bit further than that, because a lot of people don't know that don't realize you can do this. But you can actually componentize effectively in an Astro site so that you can make your own page builder. I know. And so I'll give you a peek on this one. I've not set it up properly on this site yet, but if we go to pages, we've got home and we've got about, and again, this isn't all set up properly yet. But what I can do is make it so that clients can come in and they can create an about page, and then they fill out all of the data here. Now, if you're familiar with WordPress, you know about ACF. So you have a custom post type, that will be this, or testimonials, or documentation. And then you have repeater fields. Often page builders like Breakdance or Bricks, and I don't know if X really does so much, what would give you options that you can use with that. And you can repeat little templates and fill in the custom fields. That is exactly what a client can come and do here. So here we've got a hero segment, then we've got a features segment, and if I click on that, we've got the fields that you fill out. So here we've got a feature item, and that has a title, a description, and an icon that we can add in. And if we want to add another section, we've got a choice of different templates. So differentiator segment or testimonial. If I click on this one, I have all of the. Oh, that's a good time. Perfect. If I click on this one, I have all of the fields that I can fill in there and make further differentiator items. I'll show you where that is. That's the hero segment. These are the features, and these are the differentiators. So if a client wants to create another page with this section, all they have to do is jump on to their studio and use this page builder experience. Now, that's what I put together on my first static site or Jamstack site. And it's definitely what I would be offering to all clients. I will cover how to do that in a future video. But yeah, so, can you offer a client a CMS and a dynamic page builder type of experience? Yes, you can. And look how beautiful it is. All right. There's no WordPress dashboard and blocked off page builder sections, or just a request of please don't touch that while you're in there. Damn it, you touched it while you're in there. And now we've lost a section, or we've got a gradient that we didn't need. You know the battle if you're in the WordPress world. But yes, you can do all of that with this sort of setup. Okay, cool. So we've covered there a lot of the benefits, and we've also got some client side sort of the things that clients find important. Let's talk about being the web dev. Okay, let's talk about the experience that we have to build or edit and maintain. First of all, it's a myth that people have that say that these sites don't need maintenance. You do need to make sure that you're updating the dependencies and keeping everything level. Technology moves on, and you do need to make sure that everything is running as it should. Mainly more with things like a Next site, but once you've got the static site pages generated, you can get away with a lot more. It's certainly not going to be vulnerable like a WordPress website that isn't getting like at least monthly updates. So yeah, you do need to sort of pay attention to some maintenance or just account management, but it's far less than anything WordPressy, obviously. Yeah. So, but what about the build? Well, this is where it depends on how you sort of put a site together and how you start working. See, I've got servers set up, and when the new client comes along, I've got like a base brick site and a base Breakdance site, and I would clone that. But well, first I have to make a subdomain to work on the dev server, and then I would clone that. So I need to have a server and a domain in which I can make a subdomain, and then I would clone that site. Then I would update everything within it, because the plugins and everything of my little base clone setup have gone out of date, and it's best to update them. So update all of that. Then you can you've got to make sure that the site is got the correct site title and things like that. Then you can start building, perhaps. If you don't have something like that, then you literally need to go to a server, create a new account, jump on a domain or set the domain up, install WordPress, do the initial setup, install all of the plugins, such as the page builder, and of course you've got to make sure that you've purchased that. Either way, there's quite a sort of like, I call it like project management, or project setup in the quotes, and it's literally like that's allocated an hour for the start to stop setup. Okay, so obviously with WordPress, there's quite a sort of initial setup with all of that, but with the Jamstack site, it's really quite fast, because you're creating this on essentially a code editor at first, so that could be VS Code, or in my case it's always Fuge Studio. And if we pop along, so instead of setting everything up, we just want to start designing that homepage or getting our globals together. So in this case, I won't set up an Astro site, which would be strictly Jamstack. At this point, that would do a terminal function, but it does that automatically in Fuge. But what we will do is set a desktop. We'll set desktop as our directory, so we'll place the project in there, and we'll just start a new project. So this is a HTML project, and we are ready to go. We can start designing our site. So if I just bung a class on there, and one on here, and one on there, we can do some funky stuff. So height 500, background white, some text here, some text here. There we go. And yeah, you don't need to see any more of a demo like this. But yeah, all right, you see that you can just get started, get onto the project. Now it's very easy then to initialize your Git repository, and save your files up to GitHub. Now that's an important thing that we need to cover as well. So we're talking now about the development experience. What is the development experience with WordPress? Well, we've got that server setup that we did just now, or spoke about just now. We set up the domain, subdomain, we clone a site and make sure it's updated, or we install a fresh WordPress install, and then all of the other plugins. That is quite a process. But then as we're developing, we need to take periodic backups. You might have a retention of 3 or 4 backups maybe. Eventually the time comes where, you have to kind of go, oh, okay, I made a mistake, but that was 5 backups ago and I've only taken 4. It's, you've got to set up backup plugins and things like that. There's a lot to it, and you're backing up this whole site. And I know that a backup is only as good as the one you can restore, Jamstack, or, static site version control is a very, very different animal. And what you do is, you set up your GitHub, you initialize the folder, just using the terminal in Fuge. It's very easy. And then all your project files just save up to GitHub. Now that's an important thing, because eventually they move over to Vercel if you're using that, and that hosts as well. But that's the process. Now, if 10 versions ago you go, oh, that's where I need to go back to, you can go back. You can set up your Git versions as you want to, but you're always able to go back without having to always think I need to go and take another backup. You simply, in Fuge at least, type in your changed hero section, or whatever, a better note than that, and you push it to GitHub. It all saves. You carry on with your project. So as a developer experience, you're up and working within just minutes. You're right into the code, and with Fuge you still have a page builder sort of experience here, which makes it a lot easier. And then you've got it's a much easier version control. Now it's easy then, once you've set up with GitHub, to then set up Vercel, which is what hosts your Jamstack site, and that is when you set up an automatic deployment. So this is what I mean. You do your work here, the project files are on your device, they save up to GitHub. Okay, so they're all saved nice and safe, and you've got version control there. So, you know, if you need to go back a few, that's fine. But you set up your Vercel, your hosting, and whenever you update GitHub, it will send that to Vercel and automatically update the live site. And actually, I'll show you what I mean. Let's go to Feud. This is my Feud website. And I just need to, it's an Astro site, so I do need to npm run dev in the terminal. Again, you can see how easy Feud is making this. 4321, there we are. All right, so we're all hooked up. This is my, I'm now connected to my coding files on my desktop or on my device. And let's change something in this, in here, because it's open. Current version, please note Gen CSS is now a standalone companion app. I'm going to enlarge this so you can see. Please note Gen CSS is now available as a standalone companion app. Okay, so I'm going to save that. That updates my, you can see it there. That updates the files on my device. All right, my project files. I'm going to open up my Git push, Gen CSS notification change. All right, I'm going to push that up to GitHub. So that is now updating the files in my GitHub repository. And this is where we jump along to Feud Studio. What did I write? I can't remember what I wrote. Back to Feud Studio. Is now available as a standalone. That's it. So back to Chrome. Now this should update automatically, but right now what's happening is that Vercel has noticed that my GitHub repository has changed and altered. So it goes, oh, there's new stuff there that needs to be picked up. So now it's pulling all of those files from GitHub, and this is the J and the A at play. It's now building the markup. Okay, so it's building the flat HTML file ready to serve up. And so if I refresh now, it might have already done it, and it has. It's now built that flat HTML file, and that is now what it's serving up. That's how easy it is to alter a site, a Jamstack site. So yeah, I mean, that couldn't have gone easier, really, could it? Now, obviously, my position is that you can use VS Code and set up with there a live server. Obviously, I promote Feud Studio because I made it. I made it for Jamstack, and I made it for static site creation, and it's a lovely environment to work in, and there are lots of advantages here. As you know, as well as all like the terminal, AI integration, GitHub, and exports and things like that. And you can make the interface colors what you want as well. I've gone for a nice teal. But yeah, and also there's Gen CSS, which is a CSS framework you can use on your desktop, and it creates your CSS framework for all of your projects. All right, so all your color shades, all your transparencies, all your typography sizes, fluid spacing, all of that, all taken care of for you in this example here, in this user interface. But yeah, that's where I am with all of this, is that the process as a developer as well, it's just so much easier. It's just so much easier, from the initial setup to all of the control that you can have in the creation of the pages. I mean, you're free to use code. You don't have to use a visual drag and drop page builder with their limitations. You will get the cleanest code created as long as you're up on your skill set with HTML and CSS and JavaScript. That's something that you need to be a bit sharp on. But again, Feud Studio really helps in this regard because of the simple fact that there is this page builder experience, whether or not you're in creative mode with the structure panel there and the elements, or whether you're using the touch bar here, which inserts HTML elements for you, and also if I can find it, you've got the touch bar for all the CSS as well. So it helps you write the, the CSS. Also, there are things called inserts. So you essentially write / and flex, and it will write you out the CSS. So there's loads that you can do with Feud Studio. So if you're feeling a little bit like, ooh, I'm comfortable in the WordPress world because I've got the page builders. That's why I made Feud Studio, front-end web development studio. You see what I did there? But yeah, is Jamstack going to dominate in the coming years? I think so. I think it almost got there 7 years ago. I just think that the time was wrong. There was a lot of pressure to go into visual drag and drop in the DIY culture. Now, with AI producing that DIY culture, it's using Jamstack. It's using CSS frameworks like Tailwind or GenCSS. It's using the Jamstack setup to easily create sites and easily set up the hosting for them. It's not bothering with WordPress. And so if you want to be a consultant in, all of these sites, you need to understand this technology and how it works. You need to be able to jump in and alter the HTML and the CSS and some of the JavaScript. But it's not difficult. It's not difficult. And I think that any web developer, whether they're using a page builder or they're using something more like a code editor like this, you do need to have awareness of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And if you just hone those skills a little bit more than they probably are, I only really jumped again into this in November. So, a few months practice and you've got Jamstack at your fingertips, literally. And I genuinely feel that this is where the web dev world is going right now. It's very AI led. And if you want to be able to jump in and be the rescue mission, you need these skills and you need to understand the system. If you want to grab clients and give them a cheaper and more affordable option, or not have to fuss around with all of that maintenance and security worry that you get with WordPress and the cumbersome page builders and their ever-changing, interfaces and capabilities, then Jamstack is there for you to take. And actually, that's something else to really acknowledge here. HTML and CSS and JavaScript, they don't have a sudden update like the latest page builder that you're using. They don't suddenly have an update and then your entire website changes or has a problem. HTML is here to stay. CSS is here to stay. JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript is here to stay. If you learn to create websites like that, especially websites that don't pale in comparison to WordPress websites in the least, but if you're using that tool set, you're never in danger of having to say to a client, we built your site in Elementor because it was the top dog at the time, but now it's rubbish and it's pretty unusable and there are lots of errors. We need to rebuild your entire site in bricks or breakdowns, which I've had to say to clients recently. You don't have to do that. If you are using code editing and you're using a simple system of, pushing that up to hosting as you should, then you're safe. You're safe in many areas. I'm kind of yapping on now. I didn't really expect to be honest, but maybe this is more for me. But yeah, Jamstack, static website development, I really think it's the way to move forwards now. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it for my clients. I hope you would agree that there are lots of benefits to it. And I would advise that even if you are staying in the WordPress world, which I have to because there are so many clients there, that you are at least sharpening up your skill set here in Jamstack, understanding the system, getting better at front-end web development, and just being ready for that shift in the industry, because I think it's here and it's here to stay. Okay, cool. Subscribe if you want to find out more about Feud Studio and GenCSS, please do so. Check out the links in the description below, and obviously they are available for lifetime deal at this point in time. So now is the time to go and jump in and grab that. Any further questions, please comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Comment below and subscribe. And I think I said that. Goodbye.